scholars and legal brains of this country were critiquing the ruling NRM caucus that has sold its conscience and the will of the people to the interest of an individual. Literally meaning that you are supposed to represent the interest of the people, but you end up when you reach in your party caucus coerced and come and present individual interest against the bigger picture. This literally meaning that caucuses are losing meaning.
As per the rules of procedure of the NRM Parliamentary Caucus, the role of NRM Parliamentary Caucus is to generate consensus on any particular subject matter before Parliament, which is of interest to the party. So we first meet, and in that meeting, no member of Parliament of the NRM is coerced, no one is intimidated. In fact, the NRM Parliamentary Caucus is where there is open and frank debate on issues that are before Parliament. Let me give you an example. You have seen the NRM has made progress on infrastructure. Is that the will of an individual? That is the will that was contained in the manifesto of the National Resistance Movement that was marketed throughout the country, and the NRM, as you are aware, got overwhelming support, one, with their candidate at the presidential level. In Parliament, we are over 75%. That shows you the fact that the NRM was not riding on the interest and the will of an individual, rather the interest and the will of the people of Uganda.
We have seen a situation whereby members of Parliament have been subjected to serious penalties because of trying to exercise their conscience on the floor of Parliament, contrary to what was discussed in the caucus. A case in point of some of your members whom you ended up branding as rebel MPs, who were holding a different perception from what the caucus was being imposed on to present and support on the floor of Parliament against the wills of the people that they represent.
That, in my opinion, would not be an act of sitting on their conscience. The fact that they got an opportunity, one, to speak their minds during the caucus meeting, and a position was taken, which in my opinion, by the rules of the party, that decision would be binding on all members of Parliament who attended. Two, the fact that they went ahead and again expressed their opinions, their ideas on the floor of Parliament, that is now where it would be bordering the internal rules and regulations of the party. Just imagine a world without rules and regulations. Imagine a situation where any Ugandan would come at any time and enter into WBS television studio, and you start just addressing members of the public without going through the internal processes of this television. I think that would be what I would call a dilemma. Every existing institution, every existing group must have some internal modus operandi in terms of rule.
Don't you find that strange? Because as we speak now, research findings indicate that this is costing the NRM party some brilliant brains who feel that they cannot stay in such a kind of situation whereby the party wants to put its party constitution supreme than what the Constitution says. Because if the Constitution talks about freedom of expression, and you want people to be binded by the party constitution, that's where the dilemma is. Don't you find it strange?
But to me, freedom of expression is an absolute right. And that is why I stated earlier on that the most progressive and frank discussions are normally held in the caucus. It is unfortunate that the meetings of the NRM Parliamentary Caucus is not open to the media, just like the parliamentary plenary. But if all our meetings were open, you would be in a position to see that you have people within the caucus who look at the national interest of this country, who debate from that perspective, as opposed to what you are stating emanating from what some presenters told members of parliament, that the NRM Parliamentary Caucus is sitting on the conscience of its members. That is not true. Members are free to express themselves. Members are free to bring out critical areas that are of concern to their respective constituencies, to our country, Uganda, debate them, but within the confines of our written rules. You can even cause a special sitting of the NRM Parliamentary Caucus. It is provided for.
Who is persuading members of parliament who have the conscience, the will of the people to legislate in their interest. And he is persuading them to drive his agenda.
There are processes a bill goes through before it comes to parliament. There is the first parliamentary council that makes a draft. That draft goes to parliament. That particular bill is tabled on the floor. It is referred to an appropriate committee of parliament. But who tables the bill on the floor of parliament? It is the line ministry. In this case, either the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs or the Attorney General, who is the principal legal advisor of government. So what you are imputing to me is bad motive on some individual. So these are the processes of how a bill gets its way to parliament. Eventually, when it is passed, there is also a shared responsibility that brings on board the assent by the president of the country.
At the level of the party caucus, who is that? Who is that person? Who are those people who sway away members of parliament of the ruling NRM from exercising their conscience and the wills of the people who voted them? Because we know the Attorney General, his part ends at submitting here and in cabinet.
On any subject matter, we are persuaded by the argument for, not the argument against, in order for us to make a decision as NRM Parliamentary Caucus. You hinted on the race for deputy speakership.
Yeah, you saw what happened.
And you know I was one of them.
The candidate.
I expressed my interest within the party. And you must know, in each and everything, when you subject yourself into a process, you must know that at a certain stage, that process must come up with a product. And I am happy that even when we were invited for an interface, what I would call an interview, by the Central Executive Committee of NRM, I did not let down my generation. I think it is on record that Obua Dennis Amson did exceedingly well. And at that point I knew this is where the product of the process I subjected myself into would come. It would not be me, probably it would be someone else, or it would have been myself. But the Central Executive Committee, looking at all factors surrounding the speakership and the deputy speakership, recommended to NRM Parliamentary Caucus for status quo.
Now you see,
you get the point.
An organ also of a party,
Exactly.
sending its position which the party caucus had to dust you.
What I know is you people would enjoy a situation where Obua probably is recommended with David Bahati, with Agava Vaz to go and tussle it out. But you know, there are also internal dynamics, internal procedures, internal processes that would allow us as a family, as a political family, to generate consensus from within.
Thanks, Honorable Hamson, who are joining us on this entire new segment.
Welcome.
We discuss issues.
And once again, I salute you, viewers.